Right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Q&A for Dramarama at the 29th Woods Hole Film Festival. The festival runs from now through midnight on August 1st. My name is Hannah Garfield, and I am one of the programmers for the Woods Hole Film Festival this year. Previously, I've worked as filmmaker relations. I've been an intern, so I've been around the festival for a few years now. Before we begin, we would like to thank all of the festival supporters and sponsors. This festival is made possible by the assistance and support of many people, and we hope that we will be able to count on you going forward as we continue to develop the virtual screening platform. A couple of housekeeping items. All films are eligible to receive both an audience and jury award. You can vote for the audience awards for the feature films in the platform. On the home image of each film, you'll see 5 stars next to the box that says watch later. That's where you'll vote, 1 for lowest, 5 for highest. I'm sure this film will get lots of 5s. For the short films, we will send pass and ticket holders further information about how to vote. During today's Q&A, which will last about 45 minutes, I will be speaking with Todd, Jonathan, and Christine from Dramarama for a bit, and then we will open it up to questions from the audience. Please write your questions in the Q&A section, which is on the space bar at the bottom. I will then pass along your questions for response. Please mute your audio, enjoy, and thank you for being with us today. So I'm gonna have Jonathan, Christine, and Todd all quickly introduce themselves and say where they're zooming in from. So why don't we start with Jonathan?
Hello, I'm Jonathan Wysocki, and I am the writer-director and one of the producers on Dramarama. And I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California.
Right, Christine?
Christine Kim. I'm the editor of Dramarama. I'm also in Los Angeles, California.
And then finally, Todd.
Hi, I'm Todd Bell. I'm the cinematographer on Dramarama, and I'm zooming in from Lake Arrowhead, California.
Lots of California representation on this call. That's great. So before we begin, I just want to say that I loved Dramarama. I loved watching the film. I screened it back when it first came in, submitted probably somewhere in February. And I remember finishing it and just loved how it felt like a very different depiction of youth and kind of coming of age. And it wasn't this typical, kids trying to rebel and get out of, their parents' shadow. And it felt more authentic to kind of my own high school experience. So I just loved watching the film, and really thank you for submitting it and making this film. So Jonathan, this is your first feature, correct? Remember?
Correct, yeah, this is my first feature.
What about this story kind of drew you to wanting to make it as your first feature?
Sure, yeah. I had tried to get a number of other features off the ground, including one that I went through the Sundance Labs with. And I came to the realization that I really needed to try to make something that was much smaller than what I had been writing, but I still wanted to make it personal. And I kept coming back to, I love coming of age films, and I kept coming back to the fact that I always bump up against a couple factors in coming of age films that never really felt like my coming of age story in high school, which is, just the fact that there's usually this kid who's rebelling either by like getting drunk or having sex for the first time, or, whatever they're trying to do to try to break into adulthood quickly. And me and my friends were definitely kind of holding back the hands of time in high school. We were just we were just late bloomers in that respect, and so I realized that I'd never really seen a coming of age film where the sort of late bloomer characters are the center of the film rather than sort of the butt of the joke. And then I was also a drama kid growing up, and grew up Christian. I'm gay, but I was in the closet in the 90s, and I just sort of put all of these things into a blender, and that's what came out with Dramarama. So that was sort of the origin of the film itself. And to like really get into it, like I reread my high school diary, which was horrifying. Because you know, I mean, I mean, I think anybody's high school diary is probably just like a cringe book. I'm assuming, maybe not. Maybe people are just super cool out there.
Mine was cringy. Mine was so cringy.
But you know, it sort of helped me like get back into that mindset of what I really cared about when I was in high school. My friends cared about, and you know, what we loved and hated. And I tried to make that be like the North Star in writing the project, that it would, you know, try to feel authentic to, you know, who we were and who kids like us are in high school.
Perfect. And Christine and Todd, kind of what drew you to wanting to work on this project?
Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Christine.
I'll go. Well, I mean, I worked with Jonathan on 2 projects before, 2 short films. So when he reached out to me, it's like, definitely love working with him on anything. And, you know, we had a really, you know, great, intense experience on the previous short, Doll's Eyes. But when he sent me the script, it just spoke to me right away as well, because even though I was the total opposite of a drama nerd, I definitely still had more of a high school experience that was similar, with a small group of friends who really weren't rebels, who just kind of, you know, we did our own thing, and we had weird in-jokes, you know, and the script really, you get to go into the worlds of these kids, and like this just, you feel like there's all these strange references, some of which I understood, you know, that I connected to, because as it turns out, Jonathan and I graduated the same year, and with the year that's represented in the film. So, you know, that's probably why a lot of those references did. But even the ones that didn't, it felt so real to me, what these kids, you know, were going through at that time. So that very much drew me to the project.
And Todd?
Yeah, I'm very similar. If Jonathan calls me to shoot anything, I'm there. So I just love working with him. He's such a great person, and everything that we've got to shoot together has been very personal to him, or at least rooted like in his life and experience. And so, yeah, I also love coming of age films, and have always wanted to shoot one. This is the first. Yeah, even from a short standpoint, this is the first, you know, like high school film I've got to shoot. So, I mean, all that stuff combined, but honestly, no matter what Jonathan writes, if he asks me to shoot, I'll be there.
Wow. So it seems like you 3 have kind of worked on a lot of projects before together, and kind of how did you kind of build this working relationship with each other? I'm always curious when I meet filmmakers who kind of have a team that they really like to work with, you know, how do you get to that point?
Yeah, I think that, well, I met both Christine and Todd through friends who recommended them to me. And it was actually the same project. It was a Just a Dream, which was a short that also played Woods Hole. I can't remember what year. It was a while ago.
Yeah, I think it was like 2006, 2000s.
Yeah, I think it was later than that. It was maybe 2011, 12. I don't know. Anyway, but you know, it's when someone else recommends someone, you know, obviously you trust that person. But I honestly feel like it's like, well, I'll start with Christine. This has become like a love fest. Yay. So yeah, I think that what was so great when I met Christine was how much on the same page we were about movies that we loved and what we loved about specific movies, and just how we talked about film in the same way. And it was, you know, it was just clear that it was just like a common language, which I feel like is so important in, you know, the editing process, which is basically the 3rd time you write the film. Like, you know, you write it once on the script stage, and then you write it once in production, a 2nd time in production, and the 3rd time in editing it. And I mean, you know, your editor is just your everything in terms of that final version of the story. And Christine she is so smart, and we're just on the same page, like, so clearly. And she has my back in ways that I don't even know sometimes, if that makes sense. Like, if I stray off the path, she'll put me back on it, because she just knows exactly what the story needs to be. So that's how that collaboration started. And then Todd was similar. Todd was a recommendation from a friend, and we sat down. And I think maybe one difference with Todd is I looked very carefully at his reel and all of his visual references as a cinematographer. And I there's, when you're a director, you obviously don't have the tools to actually shoot stuff. And so you have in your mind what you want stuff to look like. And I feel like the easiest way to get to that is by, collaborating with someone who's already there, if that makes sense, who already is making images that you see in your mind. And that's what Todd was. Like, I looked at his reel and I was like, oh, this is exactly what I would like a movie of mine to look like. Like, his style is completely on par with my style. So, and then he's just the nicest person, as is Christine. They're both just like nice people, and life is too short to work with people who aren't really nice.
Yes. No, it's very important to like the people you work with, especially when you end up spending a lot of time with them. I guess pivoting a little bit, one of the things that I really liked so much about Dramarama is just how real and well-rounded and authentic all the characters felt. So I was kind of wondering, were they based off of real people, or did they just kind of how did you create all the characters?
They're very much based off of real people. It's honestly, it's me and my high school friends put into a blender. They're not each character is like a one-to-one representation of a particular person, but the details of who we were is definitely sort of baked into that. And I think part of the process was actually helped by Just a Dream, the short that I made, which was also based off of a real life event. But I had, in the writing process, I had added a layer of fiction to it to sort of make it more dramatically interesting. And that blend of, the real stuff that happened, but then make it dramatically more compelling, worked really well. And I kind of really followed the same process with writing the script for this, where, not everything that happens in the script really happened in real life. But the kernel of truth is there in, actual people's lives. And so it's a pretty thorough blend of fact and fiction in terms of crafting the characters.
Yeah, I can't say enough about how much I really, really enjoyed, how multifaceted all the characters felt. And I think part of that too is that you had some really great young actors playing the characters. So what was the casting process like, and how did you kind of build up? I felt like there's such a good chemistry amongst the cast. And so how did, you aid that process to kind of create the final product?
So I shout out to my actors who are not here on the Zoom call, but they're amazing. Casting process started with, I had this really great casting team named Sunday Bowling and Meg Mormon. And Sunny was a theater nerd herself growing up. So she really got the vibe of the script right off the bat. And, really sort of knew that these characters would have, the actors would have to run the gamut from comedy to drama, because they both sort of, all the roles really have to have that range, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And from the onset, we definitely did not care about how famous the actors were, or what they looked like in terms of like physical type. We just wanted to make sure that we cast the best actor for each role. So we saw, they saw hundreds of actors. I only saw their, cream of the crop. And the cream of the crop was amazing. Like, there were a lot of really, really great actors in it. But I kept trying to steer towards best person for each role. And we were not able to see people play off each other in the room. There just wasn't the time to do that. So I had to bank on, getting a vibe from each of them individually, that they were all going to fit together on set, because I was not going to have the opportunity to actually build that chemistry in advance. And honestly, it just all came down to casting well, which is, something that I feel like directors always say. And I'll be another one that says the same thing. It's all in the casting, because when we brought those actors together for the first time, they got along like gangbusters. It was like magic. Like, they played off of each other so well. They improvised off of each other so well. And it was just based off of, a similar vibe that they had as actors who were willing to be playful and open. And the best thing about it is that they're all really close friends with each other now. Like, they see each other every week. Like, they've become
so happy.
Yeah, no, they've like become it's based off of a real friend group, and then it's like a fiction friend group, and now it's a real friend group.
Oh,
So,
that literally I think that just made my day.
it just makes me so happy. It's like this unintended, wonderful thing that came out of the movie. So
I wanted to say one thing about the casting is that, Jonathan's super collaborative. One of the things that he just threw out there was to send me some of the casting tapes, some of the audition videos, which I usually don't get to be involved in at all. And, he was just saying like, hey, check some of these out. And I think the amazing thing was that, the writing is so dense in a lot of places. It's, so the conversations are so quick. There are all these references, and you could tell, the actors that ultimately ended up, like, how they seem to know exactly what the reference meant, even though I guess as it turned out, like, a lot of them didn't, because they're a lot younger. So like, they didn't even really know, but I just believed them immediately. Just the dailies were fantastic. Like, sometimes I struggle putting together, famous actors footage, but like, here's young actors who, it's like every take was great. They nailed, the dialogue, they got the continuity, like, they were such professionals, So it definitely, that made all the difference in terms of making this film.
Good. All right. And then I guess another question, pivoting a little bit again. So we've kind of touched upon this a couple of times, how this is kind of a semi-autobiographical for you, Jonathan. How has kind of working on this film, has it made you rethink or reevaluate, kind of your own history at all? Like, kind of looking back and turning it into film, how has that kind of made you relook at things besides reading your high school diary?
Yeah, it's interesting because A Doll's Eyes, the other short that was also at Woods Hole, that was in some ways more traumatizing to like go through that experience of making that movie and the sort of places that it sort of dug into. This was less so in an interesting way. I feel like maybe having gone through that other experience made it a little easier to do it on this one. But I think maybe the surprising thing is, I kind of feel like I took a bit of a gamble, as Christine was saying, like the script had so many really specific insidery references. And I feel like I took a bit of a gamble that that would actually still translate to people that watched it. Even if you didn't sort of get the references, you sort of got that this was a tight-knit group because of how insular their sort of lives are. And I'm surprised I guess I'm surprised that that people, I don't know, like connect to it, as weird as that sounds, that as specific as it was, that people actually connected to it. And I think the other interesting thing I've found in the screening process is that different audience members tend to have a single avatar into the film, and it's never the same character. Meaning that, like, there's usually someone that is closest to who that person was in high school that is like their in point to the film. And I was also not expecting that. I was not anticipating that. And so that has sort of made me rethink the past in different ways.
Yeah, I definitely, as soon as you said that, I was like, yes, I agree. I really, really, really agree with that. Especially someone who I didn't get a ton of the references, but I kind of understood that feeling of being in such a close group of friends. And I think that translates really well. For Todd and Christine, how was it kind of, coming into this project that, is so personal to Jonathan? How do you guys kind of bring your own, how do you kind of put your own spin and your own stamp on the story? Or in the film itself?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay. Well, to be honest, I'm always following Jonathan's lead. You know how long he's spent with it, and obviously it being part of his life, not just the script, but the actual source experiences. But I also graduated in a similar time. I went to high school at a similar time. So I got a lot of the references, although I wasn't in drama. I was in the music side of things in high school. I was like in bands and all my friends were in bands and stuff. So, but it's very similar in that way because we're basically kind of, I guess, like artists in high school instead of playing sports and doing homework. So I guess I got, like, along with my friends, we all had almost like a second language or, a way of communicating through references, and we're always trying to make each other laugh. So it seems like a very similar, world for me. That's why I was really excited about being a part of it, was that I felt like it was a chance to talk about, or contribute to talking about what it was like to come of age or leave the nest in the 90s. So honestly, I mean, there's so much detail that Jonathan puts into it in the script and in the wardrobe and set, and I mean everything. It's you just try to keep up with him. So he's like really charging on every single element that's in the frame, or even a subtext in the film. And so for me, it's just coming up to speed and trying to understand it as well as he does, or as close as I can, and then know, because there's so many decisions to be made, know that most of those decisions are going to be ones that he would make himself. So yeah, it's really just trying to soak it in and learn about this specific story as quickly, but also as deeply as you can. So yeah.
I should jump in and say that Todd is being very humble, and and I feel like the great thing about a creative collaborator is that they make your work better. And Todd is one of those people who, I come in with this, X thing, and then he's like, how about this Y thing? How about this Z thing? How about this Q thing? And those ideas, those creative ideas, 100% elevate where I start at. So he's being
Glad to hear.
being,
For sure. I mean, in terms of like, I love movies that take place all in one location, but there's always the risk of it getting boring, and none of the footage was ever boring. There were rooms where you go later and it's the same room, but it's set up and shot so differently that I wasn't even aware until, you start studying it and you're like, oh wait, that's like over here. Oh, I'm in the same room. And, just the visual style and the camera movements were always changing, as the film progressed. And, so everything felt fresh, even though we were inside of a house for the majority of the film.
That's amazing. I am so glad to hear that, especially from you, Christine. And what's funny to talk about that now is I remember when we, the first time he sent me the script, like months before we shot, that was just such a huge concern. And I don't even think about that anymore. It's like it was a hurdle that we were able to get over, hopefully, or at least, psychologically, I put it out of my mind because I just couldn't deal with it anymore. But I'm glad to hear that you felt that we were able to keep it rolling, and keep it changing.
Yeah.
So that you didn't ever get hung up on it and go, oh man, it's the third time we've been in here, or whatever, whatever distraction might be. So, oh, that's cool. That's
Not at
really
all.
cool
It's
to hear.
like you found all the secret compartments in that house or something, to use every inch of space is crazy.
Yeah, I am sure that every inch of that house is on film, or it has been pixelized. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think watching it, I think in my head, I'm like, okay, I comprehend that it's all taking place in one location, but it never feels like it's taking place in one location with only, 5 characters, and then JD kind of comes in and goes out, which, you never feel like, and then you reach the end and you're like, oh my gosh, it all took place in one place with a very small cast.
Wow. I just got goosebumps. Like that was one of the biggest, I think one of the things visually that we were concentrated on, going into it. So it's cool to hear that, that we made it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, kind of added some more was the character of JD kind of coming in and leaving. So you kind of had, this insular group inside, and then you had JD come in and then you had him leave. And how I think he was a really interesting character to add. And so how did kind of bringing him into the script, how did that go? Like, how was it writing and directing it? Kind of what was your thought process with it?
Yeah, I realized early on that because there's sort of this like microcosm of drama kids, which if you're not a drama kid, like drama geeks are probably like aliens, like to some people, like, why are you acting like that? Why are you talking like that? And so I realized that it would be interesting to create a tension by having that bubble be popped by another character, and particularly a character that, was sort of both loved and loathed by this group, that there was sort of this tension around, kind of looking up to JD, but also taking him down for depending on the character. And that would, ideally create like a ripple effect throughout the entire night, that like his popping of the bubble would sort of create all of these different other conflicts and tensions. And so that's kind of, why I was interested in having like a non-drama character come into this drama world. And in some ways, because, so much of the film, because it's their last night together before they go off to college, and, they're all kind of dealing with the change in different ways. The fact that there's this character that comes in who is a little bit older than them and has entered the quote unquote real world, and has a taste of it, and kind of can, in some ways hold up a mirror to them right before they go into the quote unquote real world also just felt like it would create, again, some dramatic tension for them.
Yeah. So kind of as we've been talking, and I'm gonna ramble a little bit here just because this question's kind of been forming in my head as we've been listening. And I think it's interesting that we've all kind of said that we like coming of age films, and we kind of like these films that take place in teenagers, even when we're no longer kind of in those teenage years. And so I guess my question for the three of you is, why do you think in general people are so drawn to kind of these stories that, you know, when you think back, you know, it's not always the best time of your life when you're, you know, it's kind of this awkward, uncomfortable time that personally I don't like to think about my own time, like my own teenage years, but I love watching films about it. So why do you think we're all so drawn to these coming of age stories?
Should I start?
Whoever's ready to go can start.
I think, I mean, you know, I think one of the things is that, and this I think also comes with, I've taught a lot of teenagers as well, and so maybe I've like had an opportunity to observe them, but it's there's so much pressure, as I feel like as a teenager, to form and express your identity. And I think that there's something just inherently interesting about watching someone try on their identity or try to form their identity. Like that process is so, it's just compelling because it's, you know, the choices are kind of infinite, right? And you know, whether or not that identity is going to stick beyond high school years, I think is also a question that's kind of interesting. And so you're just watching this person try to form themselves and you know, kind of stick to it as best they can. And I feel like, to me, that process is really compelling because I have empathy, having gone through that myself, having tried on different identities, and, you know, the ones that didn't work and the ones that I feel like did work. And I don't know, I just find that interesting myself.
Yeah.
Christina.
Yeah, it's like when I was a teenager or younger, like it's like you would watch coming of age movies then too, and it was kind of aspirational to a certain point. You know, at that time it was like, oh, look at these older people who are going to be, you know, they're graduating from, you know, they're in high school or they're graduating from college. So there's that, like, you definitely kind of imprint yourself onto them and think about what all those things are going to do. You know, maybe now it's a little more of like nostalgia. There's a little bit of that as well. Like, you know, thinking about how you felt at the time when you were going through that, you know, with all the good and the bad. But you know, a lot of the films always have a lot of optimism, and, you know, they're very idealistic in some ways, even if they're showing good and bad parts of that. And so you definitely connect really strongly with those films because you either remember those feelings, or you remember the hope that you had at that time, or, you know, or maybe you haven't felt those yet and you're looking forward to all those moments that you're going to have.
Yeah, I think I love that time of life, and some of my best friends now are from that time in my life too. And I feel like you're like just smart enough to have an understanding of the world, yet naive enough to have a complete idealism about yourself and the world. And I look back on those days fondly of like how I thought of things, and I actually go back to those. I refer back to those days on how I should be now, because I feel like it's before you get kind of tainted by everything, but you're also like at a tipping point, a jumping off point in life where you really have to like everything that you've learned up into that point has to, you know, you got to make it to that other side. You got to be able to jump off the ledge and get to where you're trying to go, where you think you're trying to go. So and all these characters are grappling with that, and I think it shows people that everyone goes through that, and everyone has a different. They're all trying to land somewhere else, even if it's in the same realm. But and for me to be part of a film that like that, it's crazy for me to think, because that was about the time when I was starting to think about becoming a filmmaker, and to actually be like, have helped make a film about that time of when I was thinking about it is kind of like a weird, like closed loop or something. It felt, you know, gratifying to be able to tell those stories about, you know, growing up in the States in the 90s, you know. So anyway, lots of reasons why I feel a connection to it.
The biggest revelation to me was that, oh, that's what those drama nerds were doing the whole time, having murder mystery parties. Like, I had no, I was like, oh, it's like, apparently that is a thing that
Yeah.
I went through all of high school having no clue that it's pretty common.
Yeah, whereas I was surprised when I found out people weren't having murder mystery parties. I'm like, wasn't everybody doing that? Wasn't that baseline for high school? I'm so confused.
Yeah.
Some were just having karaoke parties in the basement of their friend's parents' house.
Oh, revealing, Hannah, revealing.
No, high school is weird. High school is a weird time. But it's also, you know, there's so much, I think you guys all gave just such great answers to, you know, why we're attracted to coming of age stories. And it's that kind of mix of, you know, optimism, realism, naivety, and it all kind of comes together to create this really interesting dynamic in, you know, storytelling and characters. So really, it's great. I've been thinking about that a lot during this call. So that was
It's
really
funny because like the I think like the cringe factor comes in with some of that aspirational stuff too that Christine was talking about. Like, I know some people are really like get really cringy during parts of Dramarama. And, you know, I think that it's just baked into that teenage stuff. It's, you know, like there's that scene where the characters are like, I'm going to win an Oscar and you're going to win a Tony and, you know, you're going to win a Grammy. And it's that, like, you know, you look at the kids and you're like, oh God, like it's, that's not how things work out in real life. Trust me, like you're not going to win that Oscar. But you know, the passion behind that, I think, is compelling, right? When you're a teenager, you love certain things and you hate certain things, and you're very willing to express that. And I think that sometimes, you know, it's just a little cringy to watch someone be so passionate about something that, you know, they're also naive about.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. I guess to kind of wrap it up, we have about 5 minutes left. So what's kind of next for Dramarama, and how has COVID affected it? How are things going? I know that's probably not your favorite question at this point.
That horrible pandemic. Yeah, so we have some future film festivals, one of which will be announced later this week. And we don't have distribution yet for the film, so we're just sort of we're going to be writing the online film festival circuit. Yeah, that's the short answer to that.
Good start. And if people want to kind of is there a way that they can kind of continue to follow along in your journey and support the film?
Yeah, absolutely. We're on social media. We're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. We have a website. Very easy to find, Dramarama the movie. It pops right up for all those platforms. So we will keep you informed as it continues to make its online festival journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and I hope all our viewers liked it too. I had a great time. Watch Dramarama will be available through August 1st. So if you're watching the Q&A and you haven't seen the film yet, you can still, plenty of time to watch it. Thank you guys for.
And I want to thank you, Hannah, so much, and thanks to the whole Woods Hole Film Festival team. I know that this transition is rough on all festivals, but you know, I just want to thank you so much for putting together this Q&A, and you know, just everything that you're doing to help keep the indie film festival world alive.
I'll keep trying. Thank you. But yeah. All right. Thank you for coming in. And this is it.
Right.
Thank
Bye.
you.